morning, everyone. My name is Thomas MacEntee. Usually I say that I am in Chicago, where many are cold, but few are frozen. Uh, but let me see. Let me make sure that I've got everything here. Great and perfect. And you should be seeing my slides. And Sarah, if there are any problems with that, let me know. Uh, Hold on a minute. I want to make sure my toolbars are great. Yeah, I always say that I'm in Chicago where men are cold, but few are frozen. But I am in Palm Springs, California. In the Southern California desert, it will be 100 degrees today. I think it'll be 110 later this week. Uh, I'm here every year, usually in May and June. So thus my raspy voice. I taught 2 webinars yesterday, and with the 5% low humidity, the air quality and allergies and air conditioning, they all create a perfect storm where I often sound like B. Arthur in Golden Girls by the end of the week. So we're here for Hiding Out in the Open, discovering LGBT family history. I created this talk about 7 years ago uh, based on requests from followers and libraries and genealogy societies. They were saying that they were getting inquiries from people saying, "Oh, I think that I had a great aunt that lived with another woman, and they may have had a lesbian relationship, or a great uncle or some relative that was either usually not living." And it was difficult trying to find out information about their life, not their records necessarily, but information about how they lived. Also, a lot of my followers call this LGBT history for straight people, because we all know that history and putting a person in context in history is important to genealogy research. And if you're unfamiliar with the culture, LGBT culture in the United States specifically, then this is going to help you out. I want to let you know that the handout Sarah has been posting in the chat, and from time to time, you will see me taking water and coffee to keep my voice uh, strong. The handout is available. It is a substantial handout. It has resources at the end. I don't believe in a bullet point outline handout. If you are going to honor me with up to an hour of your time today, you deserve a takeaway. I believe in actionable genealogy education. You can pick this up and get started with some of these resources later today, tomorrow, next week, etc. But it is my copyrighted intellectual property. I hope that you would respect that. And so I just wanted to state that. LGBT people have been part of human culture forever. Uh, it just seems that during the 20th century, starting in the mid 20th century, and there's a major breakwater event, which you may not realize, but you will soon, that they became more visible. They be more comfortable, safer, not all the time, but more visible. And these are great photos that I have pulled up from several gay archival sites in the United States. And I myself, I'm self-identified, which means I'm out uh, as a gay man. Uh, I identify as male. Uh, I have been out since 1986. I came out during the AIDS crisis. By the way, I was born in the Catskill Mountains in Sullivan County, New York. As I was telling Sarah and Nancy, my mom was a Jersey girl. She was born in New York City, but grew up in Jersey City. I'm very familiar with northern New Jersey. And so, and then I met my husband in San Francisco. We've been together 25 years. We now live in Chicago. Uh, but I think if you're not part of that, well, if you don't identify as LGBT, it's difficult to understand some of the code, some of the history, and that really is influential. So why are the stories of LGBT relatives important? Well, personally, let me get some water, and I apologize again. Well, I think everyone's stories are important. I've had followers come to me and say, yeah, I would never, I really don't want to do genealogy because I come from 500 years of sheep herders. Well, sheep herders had stories that I think they may not be as stunning as celebrities on Who Do You Think You Are, but they are important. And that's why we pursue this. So, but it comes down to, does it really matter that that they identified as LGBT and their activities? I personally say yes. This is my approach to genealogy. I don't want to just collect names and dates. You know, I want social history. That's that dash between the birth date and the death date. I want to know how they lived. Well, what did they have to overcome? What were their successes? What was life like to be an LGBT person? And also, we're going to talk about presentism in a minute. I will tell you that probably your ancestor would not identify as LGBT in terms of today's terms. And that's very, very important. But just like it should be for any relative, you should want to be interested. You should want to be interested in their activities. I come from a large family. I was telling Sarah and Nancy, 41 first cousins. They all have kids, probably about 60 or 70. And now they're having kids, that TikTok generation. And when I talk to them about genealogy and I pull out a family tree, they're not interested. But if I tell them what was it like to get a first job, where they worked, where they lived, that's very interesting. So in a way, it does matter that you know that they were LGBT. It does add to the overall information. So even though because of the nature of LGBT culture, it involves sexuality and lifestyle, a lot of people don't pursue it. They don't want to bring it up. Other family members you will find will not want you to bring it up, especially if someone is still alive, of course. We'll talk about privacy and respect there. But if they're recently deceased, some of these photos are absolutely great. So, how will you use this information in your genealogy research? So, one thing I do want to say uh, from a legal standpoint, you can't libel the dead. The dead have no privacy. That's the way it is in the United States. So basically you are free to post and say anything. It's a matter of whether you should. Uh, so what I would do is I would work with family members, get their input, be judicious about what you post. Is it really important? Uh, if you're afraid of losing that information, uh, and I always say this, that when an elder dies, it's like burning down the library. That elder has a lot of family history, stories in their mind. Uh, I very often have put down information and sealed it in an envelope. And it's part of my estate planning if the family really didn't want me to reveal it. And how will your research be shared? Be very careful. I tell my niece and nephew, the internet is a copy machine, a photocopier. The minute it's out there, you can't pull it back. So posting it on Ancestry, Family Search, etc. And also let's talk about presentism and some coffee again. I know this is frustrating. But what is presentism? Presentism is looking at the past through today's eyes. An example is slavery in the United States and enslaved ancestors. Uh, I, I can't imagine uh, that having a relative that would own slaves, but I have one. I have a French Huguenot, my ninth great grandfather in New Paltz, New York, and it's nothing that I'm ashamed of, but it is what it is. I would hope, uh, you know, and I know what the times were. I'm not saying that he gets a pass on this behavior. But the thing is, the view of slavery in 1699 was very different than it is today. Same thing for LGBT folk. The thing is, they would not identify as homosexual or transgendered. Uh, and we'll talk about when that term started. So you have to keep that in mind. They probably were aware that they were different. They pursued life differently, relationships differently, very often apart from family, because it just wasn't accepted. But you need to go in to research with what I call intellectual humility, meaning strip away all your biases and just go ahead and say, oh, okay, this is what it was. They didn't say in a letter or a diary that they identified as LGBT, but the records show this. Also, should you out your LGBT ancestor? This is something I've written articles about. Uh, Not necessarily. You may think that you're giving voice to their story. They're probably rolling over in their grave. So again, as I've said before, be judicious about it, be kind about it, and also stick to the facts. So here's your lesson in gay history in the US. Did you know that World War II was the watershed event in gay history? And you're going to say, what? What do you mean? So during the war, men and women, LGBT gay men and women, we weren't using the term back then, that were normally turned away from service due to their sexuality, were pressed into service in order to help the war effort. All right. And so you will find a lot of military people, not a lot, but a percentage that would today identify as LGBT. So in that 6 year period, imagine this. You are a young man, 19, in Kansas. You think you are the only person that is attracted to the same sex. You know no other person that is like you in that behavior. You grew up in a conservative environment. You're plucked out of Kansas and you're put on a ship or in a battalion, and you find other men that are just like you. That is the major reason why we call it a watershed event. World War I, to an example, but keep in mind, excuse me, in World War I, U.S. entered the war rather late in 1917. It was not as global as World War II, meaning World War II covered the Pacific. So it brought together these men and women who basically saw a mirror image of themselves. And this would not have happened not for World War II. Here's Alameda Air Force Base in San Francisco. I lived in San Francisco 20 years. And the reason this is important, think about this. Do you know the major cities with large gay populations in the US? San Francisco, New York, San Diego, Chicago, Philadelphia, all military installations, all on the water for the most part. So when your military service ended, what did you do? Did you go back home to Kansas? No. You basically built a community there in the local area. And that is evidence of how important World War II was. Unfortunately, once the war was over, the LGBT people were no longer needed in the military. There was actually a witch hunt also in the US government, very well known in the State Department in the late 1940s and 50s, known as the Lavender Scare. This was a time of McCarthyism. And so what developed was a way of talking and behaving under what I call a code. It's a way of keeping a job and interacting with other LGBT people. In a way, we were hiding. LGBT people were hiding certain things so that they would not be caught. Homosexuality was a crime, and that was a problem. So if you were suspected of being queer, and I'll talk about the use of that word, or different, you can lose your job, be shunned from your church, your family, your community. So this was a way of survival, is what it was. Let's go here. Martin and Lyons, a very well-known lesbian couple. started a group called the Daughters of Bilitis in the late 40s out of New York. Settled in San Francisco. I met them several times, and they were important in the LGBT movement and the visibility during the 50s. But prior to the 1950s, very few LGBT people lived an out lifestyle. That by out, I mean self-identified, uh, or they were open about a long-time relationship with someone. You may have seen the term. Have you ever heard of a Boston marriage? This was used around the turn of the 20th century, and that was usually when two women lived together long term, and that was code for a lesbian relationship. Uh, so usually an LGBT person only shared that info with friends, maybe a sympathetic relative. And this is why it's very difficult to find evidence that someone identified as LGBT. We have very few diaries and letters, although more and more are being donated to archives. And look at the US Census. It's not going to explicitly say, do you identify as LGBT? Maybe we've seen this in later censuses, but prior to the 1950s, no. Here's a shot of a bar in New York City. I came out in 86. I remember my gay elders telling me about bar culture and how important it was in New York City and major cities. So you need to know that they were social gathering. It was more than a bar. Uh, it was a second home for many people. Uh, New York, especially, the bars were controlled by the mafia or other crime syndicates. There were also certain rules I was told. Many times, both hands had to be on the bar. No touch dancing. There was a certain code of behavior. This is also in case the police showed up. So, gays were often extorted for money or blackmailed. The police officers were paid off to look the other way when it came to gay bars. Now, if a bar was raided or a dance or an event was raided, it resulted in you, if you were there as an LGBT person, your name, your address, and your occupation all published in the newspaper. This was a big thing, and it happened consistently up until I would say Stonewall in '69. Here's an example: Chicago Daily News, and these articles were front page. They were written in a salacious manner. Here we say a teacher, suburb principal seized, a vice den, and it may have been a dance, it may have been a drag show, things like that. Now, Stonewall, you want to know, Stonewall occurred, I believe, June 28th, 1969. That is another watershed moment. It took place in Greenwich Village in New York City. The Stonewall Inn is a national place on the historic register. This is basically a rejection of what the status quo was. The police raids, the harassment. It was led mostly by drag queens and younger teens who didn't want to put up with it anymore. This is why June is also known as Pride Month. This is why Pride Day is the last Sunday in June. After that, we start to see marches every June, gay pride parades, more legislation starting in New York City to protect the interests of LGBT people. Here's a great photo. These are the young kids of Stonewall. Some of them are still alive. And this was, I think, the second night of the Stonewall riots. Now that your history lesson is over, talking about code and subcultures. Hold on a minute. So you're going to have to learn a new vocabulary if you're not familiar with LGBT culture in order to understand code. Understanding code is the key to breaking through on some of these records, especially the personal letters and diaries. This is a great photo from the movie Rope, Rope. It's by Alfred Hitchcock, and it has a gay sub theme. It's based on the Lerner and Lowe murders from the 1920s. But I like it because it's that whole don't ask, don't tell, or be quiet about it approach. Have you heard of Polari? It's funny that I'm teaching this week because just last week, an article came up online about Polari. A lot of people don't know. Uh, I learned a lot of my gay history from my gay elders once I came out, but also through research. But Polari is interesting. It's a slang language developed in Britain, used mostly in the 60s, 1960s, and 70s. It was used by gays and well as performing artists, criminals, prostitutes, and other people that lived on the margins of society. Uh, it really traces back to the 16th century, and it is still in use today. Uh, slang words, I can't say what they are, but you may know it now. Uh, Words that have and concepts that have worked their way into current US culture, like the drag culture. If you've seen RuPaul's Drag Race, if you've seen Pose, the whole New York City ballroom tradition among LGBT people. And there's more acceptance, there's more visibility. But even within these subcultures, they have their own language, they have their own way of behaving. So, code is marked by phrases, vocabulary, gestures, and as I said, thankfully, uh, due to more acceptance, we're seeing more and more. Here's Andy Warhol and Candy Darling at the knitting factory in 1960s in New York City. Okay, know your neighborhoods. I know that's a weird word. I prefer that to gay ghetto. I've heard the term gay ghetto. I think it's something pejorative, but what is it? Let's start with my great grandparents. No, they were not LGBT. Richard Henneberg, born in Germany in 1891, married Frances Prisner in 1910. She was first generation Polish. And when Richard arrived in New York City on the Lower East Side, he settled in to a tenement with other Germans. And in fact, Germans from Saxony. He lived and worked in an area with his own people because it was safe. They spoke his language. They knew his culture. There was acceptance. So if you think about it, the same thing happens in gay neighborhoods. Okay. Uh, so you will see them in urban areas. That is how it worked in the United States. Again, going back to that Kansas boy, once he came off the ship, or even if you didn't fight in World War II, you would navigate to some place where you felt safe. And so that's true with LGBT people. Here's a photo of the Black Cat Cafe in San Francisco, one of the earliest gay bars. And so now let's just say this, the districts that you may know about in New York, Greenwich Village traditionally has been where artists and LGBT people have lived. San Francisco, you may think it's the Castro. You've heard of the Castro. And these are neighborhoods that are welcoming to new people in the culture. This is an important photo. Well, not because it is taken, it is the steps of Harvey Milk's Photoshop in San Francisco in the Castro, but it highlights the evolution of the neighborhood. Uh, so, oops, sorry. Basically, the Castro was a working class Irish neighborhood up until the early 70s when gay men moved in, bought up houses, and built a neighborhood. And here you have what is, I think, is a straight identified couple and two gay men kissing. And it's a pretty famous photo around San Francisco. So, but also don't use presentism. Right now, the current gay ghetto uh, gay neighborhood in San Francisco was the Castro, but it was not always that way. I learned that the Polk Gulch area, this is an area where Margaret Cho, the comedian, grew up. Her parents had a bookstore on Polk. And that is where you would find bars and bookstores and other meeting places. So it's important to know the time period. If you were researching an LGBT ancestor from San Francisco, don't assume in 1950 they lived in a Castro because that wouldn't happen. What about queer work? Now, occupations offer clues. Let me talk about the word queer. When I grew up, and that was a no-no, that was a pejorative word. Uh, you would never use that. It's the younger generations that have helped me realize that when you start using a word that was used against you, it's taking over ownership of it. And so that's why I've used the term. Uh, but is there such a thing as an LGBT job? Let me throw this photo up here. This is stereotypical, isn't it? Gay hairdresser, gay male hairdresser, right? I think it's perfect. Uh, we do think of certain trades as stereotypical. Florist, gay male. Maybe women would gravitate towards warehousing, stevedore, being a teamster, stevedore, mechanic, things that were much more male identified. So one of my research clients said that her uncle was a hairdresser and he was gay. And why are so many male hairdressers also gay? This is actually addresses the realities of what it's like to work as an LGBT person. The fact is, you could be fired for being gay. Here's a poster, I think, from a New York City initiative that would ban LGBT persons who wanted to be teachers in the New York City public school system. You can be fired for being gay. Uh, and that's who it was, mostly in the United States. So if you owned your own business, you were your own boss. Florists and hairdressers had professions that were portable. You can pick up and move to a new city. Let's say that you were in a bar raid and your name was in the paper, etc. Pick up and move out of town. And that's why look at those professions. Also, one of the other ones is department stores. And this was an odd one for me. So in department stores, males behind the counter were often called ribbon clerks. That was part of the code. So what you would do is look for bars around the department store area. Those would be places for socialization. So also, when it comes to census forms and other forms, uh, you may see certain terms used. You'll see the term artist used instead of dressmaker. Yeah, so a male would put that down rather than saying, I'm a dressmaker or fashion designer, because that immediately communicated a certain type of lifestyle. Great photos still. And also, and I will show this, it's very common when a couple were living together that the other person would be listed as an employee, servant, assistant, private secretary, or their employment under occupation might be listed as in a private home or for a private family. That was very, very common as well. So what about the items left behind? This is usually how the journey starts. This is usually how I make contact with a client or someone that needs assistance with an LGBT ancestor, is they've discovered items, either letters, diaries, or actual, items like matchbook covers, ticket stubs. Here's one. Meet me at the Roundup. I know the Roundup in San Francisco. This was where you would go if you wanted to dance at 6 in the morning on the weekend after everything else closed. You would see matchbook covers for places that Didn't necessarily say they're gay oriented. But if you knew, you knew. So, uh, and so I've seen this. Uh, and so you have to read through these items and remember the code. Look up the address and the history of that place listed on the match cover or the performance. Check out the neighborhood. Was it a historically gay neighborhood for the time period? And why would your relative, your ancestor hold on to it? What importance did it have? Here's another early gay bar. I think this is the inside of the Black Cat. Great. Uh, now, I also had another client that had many matchbook covers for local watering holes, which I knew were LGBT oriented. I haven't proven this theory, but there is a theory that says that LGBT welcoming bars were named with a combination of a color and an animal: black cat, blue parrot, pink elephant. And it communicated to out of town visitors that it was a safe space. We also had something starting in the 60s called the Damron Guide. And I think I may have mentioned this in the resources in the handout. Basically, it was a yearly address book of all the places around the United States that were gay friendly. This could be spas, gyms, restaurants, anything like that. So in Chicago, I will tell you this. This is really kind of unique. Our local, I call it swill. Our local beer is called Old Style. And so Old Style has a very distinctive sign. Every bar would have it outside, except gay-friendly bars would have the sign upside down. And so the name of the guide, let me put it in there in the chat. It's called the Damron Guide. And I'll put that in the chat and maybe we'll look it up when we're done. And I appreciate that. And so in Chicago, you knew a place was gay friendly if the Old Style sign was upside down. Great. Also keep in mind that, with the bar culture, and even today, gay bars have a meeting room so that local nonprofits, LGBT related, can hold meetings, etc. Now, using the fan club research strategy, do you know what the fan club is? FAN stands for Friends, Associates, and Neighbors. It's a theory developed by Elizabeth Shown Mills, and it basically is the social network, not a blood relation network, of a person. And it's the way that we find clues about their lifestyle. It's like where they went to church, where they worked, etc. You can find this out, say, in a census population schedule. People will be grouped maybe in the same tenement or apartment building. And it says they were all from Germany, or they spoke German or Hebrew. And so that's the strategy that we have to use. No, we're not talking about colorful dance fans. FAN is Friends, Associates, and Neighbors. So here's one fact that you may not know. Starting with the 1940 US Census, enumerators could use the term partner to indicate someone living in the household that was not a blood relation. Didn't mean business partner. All right. Not every enumerator did this. It may have been a personal bias. This is what you need to look for, though. Look for someone that's living with another person that's listed as a boarder or a roomer or a lodger. Okay. Different last name, maybe around the same age. Look for them over time in different censuses. The 1950 census came out in 2022, and they used the term partner. Also, look for occupations on different records that represent queer work. If a woman was in the U.S. Army and she was a mechanic, it's not stereotype, but it's more than likely that that person may have identified as LGBT. Passenger lists, these are great. Now, these basically for steamship travel, somewhat airline travel in the 1950s, you will see two people coming back into the country living at the same address. People, two women, older maybe, different last names. That is one possible clue. Also, check those addresses, voting registers, city directories, and census schedules. Remember, does it fall within a traditional gay neighborhood? And we will often see this. We'll see children, adult age children, a male or a female, unmarried, uh, that are living with their parents, or a married couple, older, with no history of children. Remember the 1900 census asked women how many children they currently have and how many children they've had during their lifetime that are, and how many current children are living. So that's an indication. Military discharge records. If the discharge was less than honorable, it could mean that they uh, identified as LGBT, that they were outed as homosexual. And that basically, up until Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and even later, was that acceptable in the military. Passport applications. Uh, so there are a series of records on Ancestry and other platforms, many of them with photos. Keep in mind that traditionally, gay men and women, no children, you have more disposable income. You tend to travel more. Okay. So on these applications, another person had to verify your information, that they knew that person for a specific amount of time. See who that person was. Is it a relative? Yes or no? If it's not, then you may want to go and check that out. And it may be someone that, that's their partner or someone they've been with. Newspapers, and this is really one of the best sources. Obituaries and death notices. Uh, and unfortunately, those raids, those arrests would be detailed in the newspapers. Uh, so this section is till death do us part. We'll talk about Dorothy Arzner in a minute. So this is the sad truth. Uh, Once LGBT people in the past have, especially couples, have died, they're very often buried separately from the person they were in a relationship with. It can be due to the family's wishes or due to poor estate planning. I will tell you, my husband and I, uh, 5 years into our relationship, set up estate planning so that each of us had rights for healthcare directives, hospital visits, etc. Uh, Even though I was very accepted into this big Greek family that I married into, families get weird when death is involved. And it's just a reality. And you see the evidence there as well. Remember, legally, blood trumps friendship, even when that friendship has endured 50 years or more. Here is an example. Travis Banton, we'll cover him in a minute. Very famous Hollywood dress designer. I think his name would be right up there with Edith Head and Ori Kelly and Adrian had it not been for his sexuality. And here he is buried in a columbarium with his parents. And so, and again, some couples did take care of this, but not many, to make sure that they were buried together, etc. So when you're reading obituaries and death notices, there's certain code words. You might see lifelong bachelor, survived by siblings, or no immediate survivors. Here's an article that's kind of bizarre. I don't know if I referenced it or not, but it turns out it says relatives of two men that were known as inseparable companions died within 4 hours of each other, and there was an estate battle. I guess they couldn't prove who died first, and that was it. But there are code words in the article about this. Also, look for, excuse me, look for terms like longtime companion, devoted friend. Now, prior to the late 20th century, I would say to the late 1900s, 19 until 1990s, you wouldn't see partner or lover or spouse. You just wouldn't. Here is an example. Here's an interesting one from 89. This person, very sensitive, very accomplished, MacArthur Fellow, etc. Uh, but right here it says, surviving are her longtime companion, Zan Knudsen. Now, Zan, it could be male or female, could be for Alexander or Alexandra, we don't know. But that's the code. And there are no children listed. I also find it interesting that this person was part of the LDS church. Uh, but again, there's that one clue. So conclusion, and then we'll do our case studies. I hope you're still with me and putting up with me. Things were different then. All right. Uh, I can tell you in the 40, almost 40 years since I've been out, things have radically changed. If I had told you back in 86 that I could legally marry another man, would have said you were crazy. And especially our ancestors would say that. Why would I want to do that? Uh, Here's a handwritten German letter, and it's got the word homosexual in it. Did you know that the term was not used until 1869? That's relatively recent. Uh, so, what you and I know now in the 21st century, when it comes to how these LGBT people identified themselves, it would be very foreign to them, be very foreign to people prior to the 1940s. Okay, and here is probably Revolution era France, and I don't know why. I think I know why I have this. I think it's a depiction of something related to LGBT folk. Uh, so, you know, I don't feel pity for my gay ancestors. It is somewhat sad knowing that they had to take certain actions based on society, what was expected of them. They carved out a life that they could, given the time and the place. But we really can't compare it to how we live now. So, case studies. Check my time. Very good. Okay. So, this is part of the problem. Uh, there are not many records for genealogy of common day folk, meaning not notable people that have clues that indicate they were LGBT. So the three examples I'm using are somewhat notable people. Uh, but more and more records are coming in to gay archives. People are cleaning out houses and saying, "Oh, my uncle was, part of the gay rights movement in New York City. I want to donate this information, etc." So Dorothy Arzner, as I said before, she's a very well-known film director and producer. In fact, Clara Bow's first talkie was done by her. So Dorothy is here. This is her Find a Great page and gives all of her information here, as well as she was connected with choreographer and dancer Marion Morgan. They were a very known out couple for the most part in Los Angeles and in Hollywood. Of course, this is the reason why people don't know Dorothy Arzner, and because of the way she identified. They shared the same home address in the Los Feliz neighborhood of Los Angeles. Here's a great article in in LA newspaper called Curb Los Angeles about the house itself. Let me go here. This is them as a couple. Dorothy's down here. And here, what we have here, remember I told you a passenger list. Let me go to the actual image so I can increase it. Hold on. Arzner passenger list. And I'm going to increase it. This is found on Ancestry. And let's see, there we go. This is for 1933, sailing from Hamilton, Bermuda to New York. And we see, and this would have been the height of her popularity, Dorothy Arzner. And she's here with Marion Morgan. Oh, Marion's born in Patterson, New Jersey. And here they are, same address. All right. And here I have their age. They're both female. And so that's one of those clues. I hope that makes sense. Jobina Howland, someone you probably don't know. Your great grandparents would have known her. Very well known actress. Model for the Gibson Girl in the early 20th century. She was said to have a lesbian affair with the playwright Zoe Akins. And I located her in a 1930 US federal census sheet, living with her friend, Germaine Girard, a French divorcee, in the Alto Nido apartments in Los Angeles. This is Jobina right here. And actually, I was able to pull up the record right here. Jobina Howland, I'm going to go ahead and try and see if I can zoom in here. No, I don't want to do that. Give me a break. Let's see, where are we? Sorry about this. Oh, there it is. Luckily, Ancestry highlights it for my convenience. So Jabina Howland had noted as friend. That's very unusual, folks. Usually, friend was not allowed as a relationship word for censuses. Okay. Usually, enumerators had a strict list. So they got away with that. And no, go away. And here we go. And we're talking about 48 and 32. Girard was born in France. And a lady's maid for a private family. So that would be, that would be listed there. Let's see with Jobina. Yeah. So that's one of the clues as well. Go ahead and close that. And as there. Now, Travis Banton, he traveled a lot. He did dresses for Betty Grable, Mae West, Claudette Colbert. He always listed his occupation as artist instead of dress designer. So there was a U.S. passport application that I found for emergency replacement of a passport. And here's Travis Banton. And I'm going to look for this page. And let's see, I have to go over here. Here. Sorry about that. I try to get these to connect automatically. Oops, close that. And I appreciate your patience. So basically, let's see what we've got here. We have that. I apologize as well. There. Yeah, so this is the one. Basically, this is his explanation, or it's an affidavit, how he lost his passport during a voyage from New York to France. I kept his passport in a stateroom in an overcoat where I was kept it. There were two men in the cabin with me. And of course, the steward also had access to the cabin. Not remember any of their names. Account for the loss. Those were hung up together. And there are other indications if you look through this application that he was traveling with two other men. So, and again, it doesn't necessarily say that he identifies as LGBT. Let's go ahead and look at the census for him. And I believe, if I find it right, that he's living with his parents. And where are we? Abandoned. Always at the bottom. No. Let's see. Apologize. All right. I can't find it. Oh, I apologize for that. So I think what you have now is, even if you don't have an LGBT ancestor in your tree, You have enough background information, indicators that when you find someone and you'll say, wait a minute, I remember the lecture. I remember about gay neighborhoods. I remember about gay occupations or the way people are listed in the census. And that might give you an indication. What you do with that information really is up to you. But I hope you've enjoyed this. Uh, my email address is highdefjan@gmail.com. Uh, I know that sometimes a question may not come to us right away. So you can go ahead and email me. Please keep the questions, the emails to this topic. I don't do research anymore. The other thing I want to highlight two things here while we're at it. Go ahead and check out my website, genealogybargains.com. When you first visit it, you'll get a pop-up to sign up for email. I send it out about 3 emails a week. I always have stuff on sale. You can get Ancestry for 50% off, although you can use the library edition at the Plainfield Library. But more important, right here, I have over 40 free cheat sheets for genealogy that you can download. These are 2-page PDFs, and they're helpful. The other one is, and the library might be interested in this, I have about 20 different books on Ancestry on Amazon. And they cover artificial intelligence and even things like this. This is the latest bestseller. If you've ever scrambled to find the meaning of an acronym on a genealogy record, an abbreviation, what I did, rather than having to hunt through the internet, I gathered all this information into one book. I have over 2,000 common abbreviations and acronyms, land and legal terminology for US, Canada, and UK, city directory abbreviations, over 2,000 archaic medical terms and professions, cemetery iconography. What does it mean when certain things are on tombstones? Nicknames, first name abbreviations, and this one. This is a killer. I've come up with a list of 320 different record sets that can be used for U.S. Genealogy research. So go ahead and I'd be honored if you would check that out. I am done.